I'm here with Jason Pratt, certified John Deere technician, and we're going to install Z-Glide suspension on this Z950M. Z-Glide suspension will fit any John Deere commercial mower, Z915, all the way up to Z970. Jason, let's go ahead and unbox it and see what we have here. So in this box, you're going to have two Z-Glide suspension forks, new axle bolts. You'll have a instruction sheet, and there you go. And on this instruction sheet, you can follow along here. And Jason's going to walk us through each one of these steps. And Jason, you've done a good job already of laying out your tools. Some things that we know that you need, and some things that I found out as I installed it. A 1 7/16 socket, not something a lot of guys have around.
True.
You can buy that here at Reynolds Farm Equipment, or you can pick it up at greenfarmparts.com. Either of those places. A grease gun, and any grease you recommend, Jason?
Waterproof grease is the best, but
okay.
Multi-purpose grease will work just fine.
Okay, so make sure you have your grease gun with you. And then we've got a couple of open ends that you're going to have here. You've got a couple 19s, right?
15/16.
A 15/16.
And then, well, I use a 36mm socket, so it's the same as the engine.
Perfect.
So
perfect.
But and then just something to get the.
Okay, well let's get started.
Caps off.
So removing the dust caps here, putty knife, flat bladed screwdriver, anything like that will work, right, Jason?
Yep. Of course, a floor jack and a block of wood.
Yeah, that's a good point. So floor jack, you can see Jason's lifted the front of the machine up here, block of wood on a floor jack, the rear tires, parking brakes on. And as you look down in here, you'll see that the grease from this grease zerk is up around that nut. And as we fill these back up, once the Z-Glide's on, we'll want to make sure that that same level of grease is in there. Now this is a step ahead in your instruction sheet that you have with your Z-Glide instructions. This is a savvy veteran move here. Jason's put a couple of these on before, so removing these wheels is going to give them a little bit more room to drop these forks, you'll see as we move along here. Those just drop out. Now the one thing that I know you want to be careful of, Jason, you told me this yesterday, there are two washers that we want to make sure that we don't lose from the bottom of that nut, right?
Correct. They have to go back on. One of them's just a flat washer and the other one's a spring washer. Helps keep tension held on the bearings to keep the preload set on.
Great. Did you put any grease on that before, or just fill it with the grease zerk at the end?
I fill it with the grease zerk.
Perfect. Now your instructions and your Z-Glide will show to do that. A couple things here. This is a new machine that's never been used before, so there is plenty of grease in that. As Jason puts this back together, we'll fill this back up with that grease zerk on the side of the machine. Back to that same level we saw before. And Jason, one challenge on these is how tight do I get it?
Well, your instructions say 3 to 5 foot, but that's not enough. So we're going to set the preload on the bearings. We'll kind of explain that as we go along.
Perfect.
I get the nut started, make sure it's all square, and I'll take a ratchet and pull it down. Make sure that they don't cross through.
Sure. As Jason lifted up on that, there was still a little up and down vertical play in that. And as he's tightening that, he's checking to make sure there's still free spin right and left. Checking for vertical play, no vertical play.
Side to side play. Now we need to tighten it up a little bit to make sure that it doesn't wobble.
We were talking yesterday, if you don't get these tight enough, what you'll see is these wheels wobble as you drive forward, go back and forth, and not track right.
That's a little bit too tight. We're going to back that nut off just a hair. There's a little bit more free play to it.
Great.
And we're going to go with that.
Excellent. And your Z-Glide suspension kit comes with new axle bolts and a nylon nut. Just make sure you keep those dust caps. Those dust caps slide right back on. Any tips you have to make sure you don't over tighten these?
Basically the same thing as your top nut here on the spindle is pull these up until they're snug. If the wheel doesn't want to turn, make sure your wheel's up off the ground.
Sure.
If your wheel doesn't want to turn, back it off just a little bit. Is that right?
Great.
Where it has a little bit of drag resistance to it.
And are you looking for about that same as it was OEM?
Yeah, pretty close.
Excellent. So there's a grease zerk on the inside of this. You can just watch as that grease comes back up around that nut that we installed.
About 1.5 with a normal grease gun, something like that.
Okay.
The grease will stay full inside this cavity. It's just what you lose when you take it apart. So you want to make sure that you get that grease back in there.
Great. Done with Z-Glide installation.
We are.
Now it's just lowering the machine down and leveling the deck, right? Now the challenge with these is, as Z-Glide raises the front end up just a little, you have to level the deck when it's over. And this is something you can't do by eyeball. You have to do with the deck level gauge, right?
Sure.
So let's go ahead. We're gonna walk through, Jason's gonna walk through how you level a deck on a Z900 series John Deere commercial mower.
First of all, you need to start by checking both sides, front and back. When you put the Z-Glides on, it raises the mower deck pretty much all the way around approximately an inch. So, that being said, first thing I do is check side to side.
And Jason, for those that haven't used the deck level gauge before, can you explain what you're doing?
You're sitting right on the outside tip of the cutting edge of the blade.
Okay.
And that will measure your cutting height. We want to be somewhere around 3 1/4 to 3 1/8 of an inch. Now this front, we turn the blades perpendicular with the mower deck. We're going to measure exactly the same way. We have to get this front end down to 3 inches. So before I start, I check both sides.
So 4 level, clean, rotate those blades around. Right now you're perpendicular with the machine, right on the edge of that cutting edge with that little piece that comes off the gauge. Set the machine at 3 inches, correct?
Yes. Set the machine here on the gauge at 3 inches. So, that side being the highest, we're going to start with that side. We'll loosen up all 4 corners before we start making any adjustments.
Now there are 2 areas in which adjustments can be made, correct? You've got a rod from the front to the back, and you've got the deck hanger in the very back, correct? So there are only 2 things on each side that folks need to loosen up.
Correct. Backward, you adjust your side to side. And your rod that goes from the front to the back adjusts the front to back. Get your jam nut loose.
So that top linkage is front to back, correct? So you're bringing the front down as you bring it toward the footwell.
Yes.
Same thing here because it's the opposite side. You're going to the deck to bring the front end down.
And we moved that about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to go a little more.
Jason, you mentioned losing tension as you lower the deck. These decks can get out of balance pretty quickly if you don't go back and forth as you're doing on each side. Is that right?
That is correct. And if they don't, if they're not down against your hangers, you'll get this bouncing the deck. The deck may This corner is now loose. There's no weight hanging. So we don't want to turn this turnbuckle first. We want to turn this one to let the front down. It's going to let the back down with the front to keep tension on this adjustment.
Keeping tension on that adjustment is important to make sure you get that proper level. Yeah, because you can get a false reading.
Yep. We're no longer loose. Pull that good.
Excellent. So now after the deck is leveled, it's just going back to tighten those jam nuts, right?
Yep.
So on this one, just capture that nut at the bottom.
Top one down and turn the top.
Excellent. Excellent.
Same thing here, you turn your nut and knock the rod.
If you're looking for Z-Glide suspension for the front of your John Deere mower, visit us online at zglidesuspension.com. zglidesuspension.com. You can reserve your Z-Glide there and purchase many of the tools that Jason used today from Reynolds Farm Equipment or from greenfarmparts.com.